U.S. President Donald Trump's diplomatic tour of Asia has been marked by a series of high-stakes negotiations and significant agreements. Beginning with his arrival in Malaysia to attend the 47th ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur. A central achievement of this leg of the tour was the successful mediation of a ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia. In a ceremony attended by both Thai Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul and Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet, President Trump co-signed the peace agreement, hailing it as a great peace deal and a monumental step toward regional stability. He further claimed that this was one of 8 conflicts his administration has successfully ended in the past 8 months. The agreement was a direct result of Trump's personal intervention upon his arrival, following border skirmish in July that had resulted in at least 48 fatalities over 5 days. The accord stipulates a reduction of military tensions in the dispute border region through the withdrawal of heavy weaponry and the deployment of an ASEAN-led monitoring team, which includes Malaysia, to ensure peaceful resolution in accordance with international law. As a humanitarian gesture within the agreement, Thailand consented to release 18 Cambodian prisoners of war. The diplomatic victory was underscored when Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet announced he had nominated President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, citing the gratitude of the Cambodian people. Trump, who has previously expressed interest in receiving the award, used the occasion to critique the United Nations, suggesting he is a more effective peace mediator than the international body. His diplomatic engagement also included bilateral talks with Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, culminating in the signing of a reciprocal trade agreement covering key sectors, including critical minerals. Prior to landing in Malaysia, Trump held a meeting aboard Air Force One with Qatari Emir Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani and Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman bin Jassim Al Thani, setting a productive tone for his Asia tour, which is scheduled to continue with visits to Japan and South Korea, and will conclude with a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. A cornerstone of President Trump's agenda in Asia has been the reconstructing of trade relationships, resulting in a series of new agreements with Southeast Asian nations aimed at rebalancing economic partnership. During his visit to Malaysia, it was announced that the United States had agreed to new mutual tariff rates with several key regional players for products originating from Malaysia, Cambodia, and Thailand. A mutual tariff rate of 19% was established, while a 20% rate was set with Vietnam. The agreements extend beyond tariff, with both Malaysia and Vietnam agreeing to grant preferential market access to U.S. industrial and agricultural products. In a more comprehensive step, Cambodia and Thailand have committed to the complete elimination of tariffs on these U.S. goods. A significant components of these deals involve the reduction of non-tariff barriers, which have historically complicated trade. The agreements specifically address the lowering of standards related to automobile safety and emissions, as well as streamlining licensing standards for pharmaceuticals and medical devices. In a joint statement, the parties affirmed their commitment to strengthening cooperations in economic security and export controls. A particularly noteworthy provision is Malaysia's pledge to the United States not to impose bans or quotas on the exports of critical minerals and rare earth elements. This move is widely interpreted as a strategic effort to build a secure supply chains for these vital materials and to contain China's influence, especially in light of Beijing's own announcement of export controls on rare earth. President Trump has signaled that this is just the beginning of a broader trade initiative, announcing that South Korea and Japan are the next countries slated to be included in similar agreements. He emphasized his commitment to the region, stating that the United States is 100% with you and will continue to be a strong partner and friends for generations to come. The new trade agreement with Cambodia, however, brings into sharp focus a complex and deeply imbalanced economic relationship. As the United States aims to deepen its investment ties with Cambodia, a nuanced look at the trade relationship reveals a significant imbalance and raises questions about the primary beneficiaries of this economic partnership. While the U.S. exports goods like Ford vehicles to Cambodia, with a new assembly plant even established in Bulsat province. These figures are dwarfed by the massive volume of imports from the Southeast Asian nations. Plus, the arrangement disproportionately benefits U.S. exports to Cambodia, such as the automotive sectors, while offering no reciprocal benefit from Chinese Cambodian manufacturing. The current export labeled Made in Cambodia are largely a misdemeanor, produced in Chinese-owned factories that serve as a conduit for circumventing U.S. trade policy. Recent data underscores this disparity. In the first 9 months of 2025, Cambodia's exports to the U.S. surged to over $9 billion, solidifying America's position as its largest export market. Overall bilateral trade reaches $13.5 billion in 2024. However, this trade is largely a one-way street, with U.S. exports to Cambodia accounting for a much smaller fraction of the total. Cambodia's primary exports to the U.S. consist of Chinese-made garments, footwear, travel goods, and bicycles. A critical factor in this trade dynamic is the extensive presence of Chinese-owned factories in Cambodia. All factories in Cambodia are now under Chinese ownerships, a strategic move by many companies to circumvent U.S. tariff on Chinese goods. This has led to a situation where all goods labeled Made in Cambodia are produced in factories with Chinese capital, technology, and management. Under the long-standing leadership of former Prime Minister Hun Sen and now his son, Prime Minister Hun Manet, the Cambodian government refused to foster genuine domestic manufacturing capable of competing in global markets. Instead, 100% of export-oriented factories in Cambodia are owned and operated by Chinese investors paying Khmer factory workers $200 to $250 a month, working 10 hours a day. While these facilities are physically located in Cambodia, they function more as extensions of Chinese supply chains than as engines of Cambodian economic sovereignty. The economic benefits of this production do not meaningfully reach the Cambodian populace. The value added and the profits bypass the Khmer common people. Reports and analysis suggest that much of the revenue generated from these operations flows not into local communities or national development, but into the pockets of Cambodians' political elites through opaque financial arrangement. The Trump administration took note of this trend, imposing tariffs on Cambodia in response to the nation being used as a transshipment hub for Chinese products. These tariffs were a clear signal of U.S. awareness of the efforts to evade trade restrictions on China. One official from the administration pointed out that for every dollar of goods the U.S. sells to Cambodia, Cambodia sells $39 to the U.S., attributing this to Chinese companies using Cambodia to bypass American tariff. This situation validates the existing U.S. trade posture, including the 19% tariffs, which are a necessary tool to counter this exploitative system. Any new agreement must first dismantle these corrupt structures to ensure fair and equitable trade. Former President Donald Trump was not unaware of this dynamic. The 19% tariff is aimed at the Chinese-owned factories as a targeted measure to address concerns over unfair trade practice, lack of reciprocity, and the risk of circumventing U.S. trade policies. More recently, the two nations signed an agreement on reciprocal trade. Under this agreement, Cambodia has committed to eliminating tariffs on all U.S. industrial and agricultural products, Cambodian goods, a figure that was reduced from a higher 49% reciprocal tariff. While the influx of foreign investment has contributed to Cambodia's economic growth and create jobs, concerns remains about the distribution of profits and the long-term benefits for the Cambodian people. The dominance of foreign-owned factories, particularly in key export sectors, raise important questions about the sustainability of these development models and the extent to which it fosters genuine domestic economic empowerment. If the U.S. is serious about equitable economic partnership, it must look beyond surface-level trade statistics and scrutinize who truly benefits from Made in Cambodia labels. Without meaningful reforms that empower Cambodian entrepreneurs and ensure transparency, deeper investment ties may only entrench dependency and enrich a narrow ruling class while doing little for ordinary Cambodian or fair U.S.-Cambodia trade. As the US continues to engage with Cambodia, a comprehensive understanding of these complex economic realities is crucial for crafting a truly reciprocal and beneficial partnership. President Trump's visit to the region has not been without controversy, as his presence has sparked significant public demonstration in both Malaysia and South Korea. In Kuala Lumpur, hundreds of protesters took to the street upon his arrival for the ASEAN summit, with demonstration erupting in locations such as Independence Square and Peng Park. The primary focus of the protests was Trump's stance on the conflict in Gaza, with demonstrators chanting "Trump, you are not welcome," and "Free Palestine." Many wore keffiyehs, waved Palestinian flag, and held placards reading "Dump Trump," accusing the US president of being complicit in what they term a genocide. Similarly, large-scale protests have taken place in Seoul ahead of Trump's scheduled visit for the APEC summit. Tens of thousands of demonstrators voiced their opposition, with many carrying "No Trump" placards. The anger in South Korea is fueled by both geopolitical and economic grievance. Protesters marched through the city to condemn US support for Israel in the Gaza conflict, carrying signs that read "Release Palestinian detainees" and chanting "Trump, not welcome here." In addition to the anti-war sentiment, South Korean protesters also expressed frustration over Trump's reported demand for Seoul to make a $350 billion upfront investment in the United States as part of a trade deal. This demand comes even as US auto tariffs on South Korean products remain in effect, with the two nations still at odds over the details of the investment agreement. These widespread protests highlight a current of public opposition to US foreign policy under the Trump administration, linking economic pressures with geopolitical conflicts and presenting a challenging backdrop for his diplomatic efforts across the continent. If you have made it this far, congratulations, you have unlocked the truth. I want to ask you a quick question though. Given the complex reality that our products made in Cambodia exports are produced by Chinese-owned factories, do you believe the new 19% US tariff is a fair and effective tool to address trade imbalances and circumvention, or does it ultimately harm Cambodian workers and fail to resolve the root of the problem, and why? Join the debate. We want to hear your insightful opinion on where this is all heading in our community. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Like the video, hit the notification bell, and most importantly, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.